It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Welcome to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Thanks for tuning us in. We're trying to keep you informed of what's happening. Want to thank you once again for making our show, the Sam Lesante Show, the #1 talk show in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I really appreciate it. Now, I remember telling you that we wanted to keep you informed of what's happening political-wise, politics-wise. Of course, you've been watching my good friend Mike Marsicano, and that's the way it is, getting tremendous reviews. Last time when I had Charles McElwee on, who is the editor of RealClear Pennsylvania, and former Congressman Lou Barletta, I promise you that we bring them on periodically just to give us an appraisal of what's happening and what we could do to better ourselves. So it's nice to have Charles and Lou back on the show.
Great to be here.
Charles, the election's over with, and we're looking at a new governor, looking at different things. What are some of the areas that you think we should be looking at?
So, a newly inaugurated governor, Josh Shapiro, who so far is running this aggressive campaign in the sense of press coverage of him being a moderate so far as governor, trying to cement himself as what he dubs a pro-business governor. He won in large part because of his opponent, Doug Mastriano. He was a remarkably weak candidate, perhaps the weakest in memory. And at this point, Republicans are going through this period of introspection, how they could have performed so abysmally statewide in Pennsylvania in 2022, when up until November, the expectation was that Republicans would do quite well, and the opposite was the case. So there are a number of factors here, Sam, but among them would be the fact that they have to confront the reality of Pennsylvania's demographics. This is a state that has had anemic growth since 1980, 7% population growth, but the suburbs are exploding. Chester County, for example, alone has grown 68% since 1980. That was a county that was once a Republican stronghold. It's now Democrat. I live on the border of Chester County now, in an area that had trended Republican, but is now solidly D. What is the Republican Party's message for those voters? Republican candidates in Pennsylvania cannot win statewide without performing well in suburbia. They may not win suburbia, but their margins have to be good enough in suburbia to prevail in future elections. So I think that's where we are at this point. Shapiro won in part because of the suburban reckoning that Republicans confronted in those regions like Greater Philadelphia, South Central Pennsylvania, and moving forward, Republicans can do one autopsy after another, but they have to confront the reality that Pennsylvania is home to an increasingly large segment of suburban voters.
Lou, and as a former congressman, former mayor, and you've been around a lot, your thoughts and which way the state of Pennsylvania is going?
Well, Sam, I think what we saw in the last election, which is going to be very detrimental for a lot of people, in my view, because of the election results. There was a lot of things that were responsible for it, and I think there was a lack of leadership really in Pennsylvania, and not recognizing that we needed to make sure that we had a candidate that can win a general election. Pennsylvania, there's 600,000 more Democrats than Republicans. So if you don't have some crossover appeal, it's almost impossible to win, especially in the Southeast, which really is a major factor in a lot of these elections. So, I think Republicans need to look at, not only what went wrong, but where do we go from here, and how do we move forward? We can't just shrug this off, because there's no excuse for what happened here in Pennsylvania when, the opposite was happening around the country. So I'm going to spend my time doing what I think is necessary to right this ship and change the direction that we're going.
What is the message that the Democrats are saying that are making people go towards Democrats versus what the Republicans are saying? I mean, so there has to be a reason for that. What do you think the message is, Charles?
Well, the Republicans have a messaging crisis. So one anecdote that comes to mind, and it stuck with me, At one point in the gubernatorial campaign, one of the PBS affiliates outside Philadelphia asked Josh Shapiro and Doug Mastriano what they would do to address the healthcare shortage crisis in Pennsylvania. The fact that in rural areas, hospital accessibility is becoming tougher. What would they do to address this issue? Shapiro's campaign responded with a substantive, detailed outline of what they would do to address an indisputable, non-ideological crisis. Pennsylvania has an access of care issue. Mastriano did not respond, and that was the theme of his entire campaign. No response, no engagement of the press. And fast forward, I think in Pennsylvania, if Republicans want to get back to where they were in, let's say, 2016, for example, they have to address that cross-section appeal, that to have answers to issues like what will you do about health care, how will you address the fact that hospitals are closing in places like Chester County, what will they do about the economy. And in the case of this past cycle, in spite of the culture wars that we have going on, Democrats had an upper hand in those suburban areas where where there are bounties of voters. They had answers to those questions. Republicans did not.
In your case, Lou, because you were involved and, basically you should be the governor today, but however, we have to live what we live. So what you saw, okay, in terms of, because you were all over the state of Pennsylvania, the polls were there for you. The polls, according to what you have, is said that you would be one of the only candidates that were able to beat Shapiro, okay, and you were, your record's been out there, okay. So with all that being said, all right, you have a Republican Party, and then you have Trump, who comes out and says, well, I'm going to vote I'm supporting Mastriano, after you've been there from day one. But that's another story. Okay, so how does that fly with the, when I talk to people and the Republican Party's done with Sam. They're just finished because they can't get along. They don't know what they're doing. That's the whole 9 yards. How do you react to that?
So, I think we have to really look at how we approach these elections. Another big factor and problem with the Republican Party is, Trump came out and said mail-in ballots are no good, don't use them, don't do it. And, you have a part of the Republican Party that just took that approach where the Democrats said, listen, we have mail-in ballots, and they worked it, to their advantage, where they've been voting for over a month. Republicans come out election day. And, when the bell rings on election day, the Republicans are already behind by a substantial amount, and the party never recognized that, listen, even if you don't like mail-in ballots, it's what we have. And until it's changed, we need to be just as good as the other team if we want to be able to compete in these elections. And so I think they were slow to realize, how do you win elections in a state where there are more Democrats than Republicans? It's not by taking an approach, well, let's just wait till election day and see what happens.
Well, when you look at the policies and you look at the crime rate in the state of Pennsylvania, it's going through the roof. You have Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, etc. And I've always said, where was the accountability? Because the policies are, as you can see what's happening today. I mean, I don't have to tell you about oil prices or gas prices or inflation and how people are hurting. Aren't people concerned about what's happening with the different policies that are being out there?
Well, they are, but they don't know how to change it.
Well, that's the point.
They don't know, what do I do about it? And a lot of people just throw their hands up and say, it doesn't matter, nothing's going to change. And
how would you change it?
So that leads me to what I'm going to do with my time. And with the many years that I've been involved as a public official and as a candidate for Senate and governor, I decided I have a lot of political capital out there yet across Pennsylvania, running statewide twice. And I believe that if we want to change, we need to go to the local level. We need to find good candidates. You want to change your schools? You don't like what they're doing in our schools? Let's go find good school board directors. So I've created this PAC. It's called the Pennsylvania Comeback PAC, and its goals really are, the things we believe in: limited government, energy independence, school choice, putting parents back in charge of their child's education, safer neighborhoods. I'm going to go out and we're going to find, the PAC, the organization is going to find good candidates. And we're going to get behind them, and we're going to get them over the finish line. We're going to help them with their elections. We're going to help them with financial, and that goes for school directors, school boards, supervisors, mayors, councils. You want good people in law enforcement when we elect, people to our district, to our magistrates and DAs. Let's go out and find good people and get behind them. And we fix this from the bottom up. And we put good people in office, and we take bad people out of office. And that's what the PAC is going to be doing, and I'm very excited, and there's been a lot of excitement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so far, I mean, this is nothing new. You've been working on this for a while. How has the reaction been so far throughout the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, people agree. Listen, you want to change your community?
Yeah.
Let's put good local officials in there. And, I was one of them. I was a city councilman. That's how my political career started. So a lot of these people, when you find good people and you hold them to their word, because then if they don't, then we run people against them.
Yeah.
But you hold them to the word, those people eventually, some of them trickle up to the highest offices. But we start with let's change our local governments, let's find good people, and let's get involved there. And I think people are attracted to that because they feel they actually have a say in their local community if they get involved at that level, rather than just look at the party and say, let them handle it. Let's take this back in our own hands, and I'm going to lead that.
Charles, when you're talking about policies, and you're looking at the policies of what each party has and what they stand for, okay, how do you justify the fact that, when you looked at policies that are killing us, and yet the one party seems to be putting us in that direction? And how do we let the radicals take over in the last couple of years, and destroy a lot of things? How does those things happen? You're in it every day.
Right, so if you're looking at it from the sense of radicalism with the rise of progressivism, that's definitely ascendant in Philadelphia and also in Pittsburgh. Statewide, it's a different story. But the Democratic Party in general, whether is the left or just moderates in suburbia, they're better organized than the Republican Party right now in Pennsylvania. And the fact is that for example, Josh Shapiro is not to the left. He is a centrist compared to, let's say, the DSA state house member in Western Pennsylvania. But the party's organized, and they therefore have an advantage when it comes to ballot harvesting, registering voters, and they already have the upper hand in Pennsylvania because the voter registration advantage statewide in Pennsylvania remains with the Democratic Party. But the Republicans can rebuild in a state that has been competitive in recent cycles, and Lou was talking about finding candidates, and really, like Bucks County is an example of that. So, when you look at Greater Philadelphia, of the 43 state representatives, that area is down to 9 Republicans among the state House members. But in Bucks County, although Democrats have been performing better, it still remains competitive territory. Republicans still win there. They still have a Republican member of Congress, and it's because it's still a county where the party apparatus goes and finds talent from the ground up, and they run for those local municipal offices. So that it would be like a model statewide for the rest of the state.
And the key is, Sam, is to go out and find candidates that can win a general election. That's the goal. It's not to win the primary. You can find a lot of people who can talk to primary voters and they fall in love with you. However, they have no chance of winning a general election. So, we need to make sure that if we want to win these elections, we have to be smart. We have to know how to do it. We have to adapt to the rules. Like I said, we have to get better at mail-in ballots because the other side is very good at it. Until it's, if it's ever eliminated. But you have to win the general election, or else we're going to continue to lose on election day.
What is the message that is being said by the particular candidate? What do they believe in, or what are they bringing to the table? I go back to the policies of which the Democrats have done in the last 2 years. And whether it would be Republican, I'd say the same thing if it was a flip. So you see what's happening because of their policies with energy, with supply chain. We see what's happening in New York City with these people coming in, the migrants coming in, destroying hotels, Bakersfield, where they're shooting up. I mean, there's all this stuff happening under the policies of, happens to be, the Democrats. So I see what you're saying about registration. So where does one react and say, look, this is not what I want. I should be changing these things. You fought for that from day one. I'm going to take a break. I'm talking to Charles McElwee, who is the editor of RealClear, Pennsylvania, and former Congressman Lou Barletta. Will be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Once again, I want to thank you for making the Sam Lesante Show the #1 talk show in northeastern Pennsylvania. And that comes from a scientific poll done by Susquehanna Polling and Research, rated #1 by RealClear Politics in the state. I really appreciate that. Now, I said we'd try to keep you informed what's happening in the state, in politics, and so Charles McElwee joins us again. He's the editor of RealClear Pennsylvania, and of course, no stranger to the show, former Congressman Lou Barletta. We were talking about, the policies, and, do people really look to what that person stands for? Because when you're looking at school districts, and when you were campaigning, you saw what they were teaching in schools. I mean, it was like amazing what they were telling kids. How does that happen, Lou?
It's still happening. You know why it's happening? A lot of people of your viewers may not even know if it's happening in their schools. I talked to some school board folks, and they're not sure that whether it's happening. I'm talking about some of the books that are in our libraries. An example was we were debating in Lancaster, and a woman was holding up a pornographic poster.
Yes.
And she was screaming at all of us on stage, and they drug her out while she was screaming. And after the debate, every gubernatorial candidate walked right by her, and I went up to her to see what was going on. And I looked at the poster, Sam, and it was pornography. And she said, "This book is in my child's school library." And then she flipped it over, and there was another poster, and it was a page out of a book, and it was a father talking about having incest with his 12-year-old daughter, explaining the experience. And she said, "This is in my son's school library." And we found out that it's not only in that school district's library, it was in Cumberland County, it was in Monroe County. We have no idea what's happening in our schools. And you know why? Because we've got to elect school board members and I want to find them to say, listen, this is going to be our mission. We're going to make sure we know. I want you to be able to tell people in that school district, this is not happening in your school. We don't know what's going on. And we've got to go out and find these kind of candidates who are passionate about changing what's going on.
And you're going to be ground root. I mean, you're going to be in the ground.
This is a grassroots movement, and we're going to help these people get elected.
Being in it every day, Charles, you look at different things. You're seeing, you're involved with a lot of news people and getting information. How do we let these radicals get so far? Because when you talk to the average person, it's like when Lou mentioned that on my show, it was like, "Are you kidding me?" And parents were going, "They can't believe it," Your thoughts?
Progressives are well organized, and they have the backing of institutions. So when they run, they already have the upper hand when they announce their candidacy.
You'd be shocked as to what we have in our colleges. You'd be shocked to know some of the teachers we have some of them are, again, I'm not casting aspersions, atheists, radicals. Okay, and they're teaching our kids things that we did not grow up with, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, you're absolutely right. We brought it up. I was on the Education and Workforce Committee while I was in Congress, and we talked about some of the things that are going on, and should public money be used, should taxpayer money be used, when this may be complete opposite of what I want my son or daughter being taught.
How do you expose those things? How do you expose them? You're in it every day. How do you expose these people that are in our colleges that are complete wackos?
It's a tough task because, again, there's an institutional advantage. So whether it's the press or higher education or nonprofits, the advantage that progressives have is it's backed by all the powers at play. But and it is a crisis. Whether it's
Let me ask you this: you're in Congress, okay, and you're a Republican. And the Republican Party comes out with a particular policy saying they're the party, the president, they're pro-choice. They want to, if you want an abortion, you can have abortions, et cetera, et cetera. What do you do? Because it's your party saying that. What do you do?
Well, again, you have to stay true to what your principles are, and I always said this. It didn't matter what the party is. I am who I am, and I believe what I believe.
What would you have issued a statement, or would have you said if it came for a vote that's participating? What would you have done? Even though you get pressure from your leader.
Sure. Well, the first thing you do, you go back to your constituents, and they have to know where you stand on it, and you have to back it up with how you vote. Whether you vote. I'm pro-life. I'm proud to say that I have a 100% voting record for life. Any bill that came before me that had to do with life or choice, I chose life.
You would have made yourself known, even though your party says you would have made because
sure, absolutely. I mean, I went down there when I was fighting, the problem of illegal immigration.
So if I said to you, and your party says I'm getting rid of fossil fuels, your same party, and I'm getting rid of fossil fuel, we get rid of the coal, et cetera, what would be your stand on that?
Well, absolutely would go against it, especially where I come from.
And you would have made a statement on that.
I would have made a statement.
I'm alluding to something right now. We have a congressman, Matt Cartwright, who supposedly is supposed to be representing our area. Okay. I've heard nothing from him when it came to killing of babies, unborn babies. In fact, he's voted for them. I've heard nothing from him when it came to fossil fuels, defending people in the coal industry. A statement, I heard nothing from him, okay? Now, if he has done something, I stand to be corrected. I will read it, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think should be done when you say hold these people accountable and getting people in office? Well, if they're not living up to what you believe in, why do you keep putting them back in office? Your thoughts on that? You have 2 minutes.
Democrats are running candidates that fit their districts.
Yes, but our district is not.
No, it's not.
Our primary district is for coal, which is clean, and we talked about that a zillion times. Why it's so important. Our district is for not killing unborn babies. Okay, where's Cartwright? You don't hear.
But you still, I mean, when you look at the composition of the district, you still have Scranton, you still have Lackawanna County, and in other words, enough voters out there who still have this nostalgic view of what the Democratic Party was, and therefore still vote Democrat even though that party no longer exists.
And that's the mess we're in today. Hence why you're doing what you're going to do, Lou, and hence why you keep reporting, okay, because we have to resolve these things, because how much pain could you get?
Well, that's exactly right, Sam. I mean, think about it. The policies that the Democrats stand for are not the policies that most people believe.
Yes.
But how did they win?
That's the point.
Right? How'd they win? And it goes down to you have to win elections. You have to know how to win elections on election when they come up, because they didn't win with the policies, with the economy the way it is, with inflation the way it is, with the price of gas. Pennsylvania was the one state that stood out that, didn't conform to what happened around the country.
All I could say is that the poor people that are getting wrapped today with there's so many people who have come up to Debbie and I when we're in the grocery store, and they shake their heads and say, Sam, how do we get in this mess that we're in? We just paid $500, $1,000 for fuel oil, where 2 years ago it would have been way less, half to that. You're buying groceries. I mean, people are trying to survive, and they're getting hammered. Anything in closing there, Mr. McElwee?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, we're overwhelmed by so many trends right now. People are struggling with the economy. People, when we talk about schools, there's a crisis of mental health among children. Children on antidepressants.
You wonder why.
Talking about their mental health struggles, and there need to be solutions, like quality candidates who can address these matters.
These poor kids today, what we put in closing, what do you, anything?
We need strong leaders who are not afraid to stand up and say what they believe, and even if the media will not be on your side, you can't be afraid to say what people want you to do, and that's what we need in Pennsylvania.
How does someone get involved with your
Pennsylvania Comeback? They can go to loubarletta.com to find out more about it, and I'm going to be continuing my tour around Pennsylvania, announcing what I plan to be doing.
And you're on every day, RealClear Pennsylvania, on the website, right?
That's right, RealClear Pennsylvania, where we have original content every day, writers talking about what we're talking here today.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show, get it upgrade. Hopefully in a couple of months we come back and we can have better news, okay? Folks, we're always open for opinions. We just try to bring information, but facts are facts, my friends. As they say, facts are stubborn things. You know what you're paying. You know what's going on. You worked all your life, and most of you didn't sponge off the government, did you? You had a work ethic, and you went out there and you earned it. We'll see you next time.